Most people, they use their iPhone cameras on just default settings. And that's very often why their photos look so average. You see, I've shot professionally for years and I've spent a lot of time dialing in the perfect settings for my phone. And today, my friend, I'm sharing the secret sauce that will transform your good photos to great ones. Now, whether you use an iPhone or an Android, then I can guarantee that these settings and techniques will massively change the way that you take your images. Plus, there is one setting I'm going to dive into that I see almost no one talk about. All right, so the first thing that we do is you go to settings and you navigate to camera. Click that. Here are just a few things that are going to change that are going to make your photos and life much easier. First thing that we can find is format down here. Click format. And then I like to have camera capture on high efficiency. Underneath that, you have the photo mode. And I highly recommend that you shoot or you pick 24 megapixels. Then you have Pro RAW and resolution control. Toggle that on. You don't have to shoot in Pro RAW all the time. Matter of fact, I don't think that you should because those files are insanely big. But being able to toggle it on and off, very, very, very good. And we want that. Then you have Pro RAW format. Now, if you want the absolute best of the best quality, you will choose JPEG lossless. Now, keep in mind that your files here will be pretty damn big. I've experimented with all of these, and honestly, I can't see a massive difference. But if you really want to know in your heart that you have the best settings that you can find, then by all means, pick the most compatible. But if you want to save a little bit of space in your cloud and on your iPhone, then you can place JPEG XL Lossy. Completely up to you. All right. Now, after the format, we are going to focus on the composition. Here, I want to toggle on grid, this one right here, toggle that on, and also level. Very, very important in my opinion. Then, underneath that, you have the Fusion camera. I think this is new on this phone. I don't know if it was on the 16. I didn't own that device. But basically, this is super cool, and I would toggle this on. And a little bit further on the video, you will see why this is like a pretty cool thing. But keep that on, all of these, and you will be good to go. Then you do so have something called portraits in photo mode. I am not much of a portrait photographer. I mainly focus on landscape and these urban landscape type of things, if that is even a word. But as I've understood, this allows your iPhone to automatically capture more information that you can then apply on later. So I think there is no harm in not having it on. Prioritize faster choosing, toggle that off. Lens correction. At the wide angle, you can have some distortions. If you press that on, it will try to correct for that. Sometimes in my lenses, when I'm using a full frame camera or an APS-C, I like the distortion. So just toggle it on, see if you think it's better. If not, it's totally up to you. Then this basically, I have macro control on and then lens cleaning hint. This is new. As I've understood, I've only had this for a few days now. If your lens is super smudgy, the iPhone will be like, bruh, you have had your dirty little fingers on those lenses, clean it, bitch. I don't think they will say that, but you understand. All right, so next up is the camera app itself. Now, when it comes to the camera app, I think the most important part is knowing where you switch between the RAW files and then up the resolution, all right? So up here in the left corner, you can see that you have the formats. So if you want to shoot in, this is kind of the JPEG, but this high efficiency format that Apple has, then you can do it here. I have by default set to 24 megapixels. A lot of the photos that I shoot are just with this because I don't want to take up immense amount of space. Now, if I were to wanted to shoot 48 megapixels, maybe instance, I just click that and now I have the high efficiency 48 megapixels and then between RAW. Now with the RAW files, I recommend shooting them at 48 megapixels, but only do that, my friend, when you truly want to capture some amazing shots. If you're just shooting this like you're shooting your selfies with it, you're going to burn through a ton of storage and there's no need for that. And one thing that you will also notice if you used other iPhones in the past is that they have a simplified look. Now you can only see photo and video, and if you're stressed out and be like, well, but where is the panoramic, then if you just click down here, you can see the rest. Pano is here, spiral, portrait, and all the things that kind of nobody uses. Sometimes you use it, so that's where it is, but it's just a little simplified look, okay? Now, one thing you notice too is that here you can see the grid lines. Remember when we toggled them on before? These are the grid lines, and these are so nice to help you compose a photo, all right? Now, as you can see as well, you have the 0.5 all the way to 8x, and the way that you switch them is like pretty simple. You just click on them like this. My recommendation is that you stay within these. If you start, you can obviously click on it and go to this dial as well, and as you can see, you have up to 40x. But then you're just punching into the lenses and you're losing a ton of quality. Just try this out and it won't look super cool. Of course, it's a little bit cool thing to have, but your photos won't be pretty, period. One thing that is super cool now is if you tap on the 24 millimeter, you can tap on it and now you have the 28mm and then you have the 35mm. So these are 2 extra looks on the 24mm lens. I like to have the 24 as my default, but if I need a little bit different look, I can just easily tap that there. Very, very, very cool. Another thing I think is good to set the note about too, up here in the right corner, you have a few settings. You have, of course, the styles if you want to have some stylized look right off the bat. Personally, I like to edit my photos. And a little bit later on in the video, I will show you how I edit my photos and help you like edit your photos as well. But what I want to check on here is the aspect ratio. So you have a few different aspect ratio here. You have 4:3, 16:9, and then 1:1. I recommend having 4:3. That's the most amount of space, and we like that, you know. So next up is by far the most important part in order to take exceptional photos using a smartphone. But first, a massive thank you for today's sponsors, Artlist. So I've been getting all of my music, sound effects, stock footage, templates, and plugins from them for years. And after having tested basically every competitor out there, after doing this now for almost 10 years, then I can comfortably say that they are simply just the best in the business. Otherwise, I wouldn't take them on as a sponsor. Basically, their mission is to make life for us easier by giving us access to all the digital asset we need to create banging content. And lately, they've been going heavy into giving us access to the latest and greatest AI tools. I'm talking advanced voiceover, text-to-image generation, and my personal favorite, image-to-image generators. For example, check out this thumbnail I made. Looks pretty good, right? Well, here's what they look like at the start. Basically, just my cameras and lenses dumped on the floor. It's not very sexy, right? But on Artlist, I used a tool called Nano Banana, and I swapped out my boring-ass floor for any background that I wanted in seconds. Guys, this is insane. Cutting things out like this used to take me hours inside of Photoshop. And honestly, I wasn't even that good at it to begin with. But now, I don't need a graphic designer. I am the graphic designer. You understand? Because these tools allow me to do things that I wasn't able to do beforehand, and Artlist has a lot of them. Super simple, super powerful, and honestly, the future is just here. And if you want to try it out, there's a link down in the description. It will give you 2 months extra of your yearly subscription, plus a little kickback to me, which massively helps this channel. So big thanks, my friend, for clicking the link, and massive thanks for Artlist for helping me keeping these videos coming. So the way that you take exceptional photos with your smartphone, it comes down to a few different things. Of course, knowing how to take photos in general, composition, lighting, and all that will help a ton. I have a lot of tutorials on that. But there's also things that you can do in the camera itself that will help you out a lot. For the starters, you want to underexpose your photos. I do this to all of my images, whether it is my camera or my phone. And the reason you do that is because you want to protect the highlights. You don't want to blow out the highlights. It is much easier in post-production to retrieve the information in the shadows, lifting the shadows and pulling out the information there again, than trying to recover blown out highlights and trying to retrieve information there. And on the iPhone, you can do this twofold. You can, of course, go up here in the corner, and then you have something called exposure. And this is an exposure dial. And you can just dial it down like this, and you will be setting it by default, whatever you want. I think between 0.3 all the way maybe to 1 stop. 1 stop is maybe a little bit much for a phone, but try it out. It's definitely something that I do, but somewhere there is nice. Now, what's cool about this, you just set it, and then you don't have to worry too much. But personally, what I like to do when I'm using my phone, then I just like to click the screen like this, and you see the sun thing here. This is a little handle. By taking it down, you are underexposing your photo, and by taking it up, you're overexposing it. And then based on the scene that I'm shooting in, I do this by feel. So I'm out in the field, I take up the phone, maybe here on the camera, and I just click, and then I just underexpose it ever so slightly like this. This is a little bit too much, but you get the idea, my friend. The next thing I always like to do to my smartphone photos is to soften them a little bit. In my opinion, especially iPhone, it likes to process your photos a lot, making them overly digital, and it just looks like a digital smartphone photo. But by taking down the clarity slider in post-production and maybe taking down the texture just ever so slightly, you create a little more soft, dreamy image. And that leaves us to the next part, which is editing. If you want truly exceptional photos with a phone that doesn't look like you took it with just a smartphone, but maybe a big-ass camera, then you need to edit your photos, which makes us want to jump into Lightroom. So when it comes to editing smartphone photos, I like to do that inside the phone itself using an app called Lightroom. I think they have a free version out there. I'm not sure. I'm paying for this app. I think it's really good. There are probably some good free alternatives out there as well. If you know any that you think is particularly good, let me know in the comments down below and let's help each other out. We're building a little community, helping each other, becoming better. But the principles that I'm sharing here will pretty much be the same whether you're using another app or Lightroom. So if you just start with this photo right here, as you can see, I have a raw file and a raw file, and then the rest are just like these high efficiency files. So we start with this raw file, and the first thing that I like to do is usually to crop the photo. Now with this photo right here, I think the crop is pretty nice. It is 4:3 with this aspect ratio that I like. Maybe I would like to crop this out. We can click this lock button right here, and then you keep the aspect ratio. You could crop it in something like this, then you have less of the branches. But I thought that this super wide look with this tiny tree down in the bottom middle looked pretty damn cool. This is how I framed it. Now, what I always do with my smartphone photos is that I start by using my mobile preset pack. This helps me speed up my photos tremendously, and usually with my smartphones, these aren't photos that I'm printing and hanging up on my wall, which is photos that I put into Lightroom, edit them for hours, then go to Photoshop and just really putting a ton of time into this. I just want it to look good so I can post it on social media and get on with my life. So if you click this little button right here, you have my mobile preset pack, and here I have like 40 different presets. One thing I like is autumn light. I think this makes the photo look pretty cool, you see, right off the bat like this. But I do have a preset that I think looks really cool on this photo with much more oomph. It's called Rainy Streets. Let me see, it is here. So if I click that, and boom, much more dramatic, and I love this color scheme. We have a blue sky, and then we have a complementary color down below, just tiny bit of it. Now next up, on this photo, it's pretty much ready in my opinion, but we have these branches, you can see them here, and these branches down here. Now, I would personally remove these because I don't think they add anything to the photo. And to do that, you click this removal tool. It's down here in the corner. Click it here. And what you can do, you can have generative AI on, and then you just paint here what you want to remove. Just like so. It's super simple, guys. You just paint it, and now you can just look at Lightroom do its magic. Now, another photo that I can show you too, and this is just a JPEG file or high efficiency file, 24 megapixels, so not at 48 megapixels. And here, I think we can start with going to my preset pack, and I think that a moody, maybe cinematic look. This looks actually cool. Just one button and okay, nice. But here, this is a base tone. What I would do after this, probably go to light, take up the contrast a little bit. I want this punchy contrast, and I want to focus a little bit more on that Jeep sign. So I would create so-called mask. So click the masks here, and we can create a radial filter like this. And Lightroom is giving me all of these hints. It's a new phone, and I just downloaded Lightroom in this app on this phone. So let me know. We could do it like this, and I take up the exposure, take up the contrast a little bit, and a little bit up with the white, just like so on this area. And I think this is nice. And just with a few clicks, we took the photo from this to this, and I think it's super cool. Now, if you're interested in grabbing my mobile preset pack, you can find it in the description down below. It doesn't cost much, and it comes with an in-depth video tutorial where I show you how I edit using them. But better yet, you can also grab my master bundle, which is basically all of my digital products worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars bundled into one little bundle that you can grab for less than $100. I'm not sure for how long I will run this bundle deal, but you can grab it now, and you can also find that in the description down below. Now, with that being said, presets, they aren't a magic solution, and not always can you just slap it on and it looks good from the get-go. You have to adjust a little bit afterwards. For instance, this photo right here, this is what it looks beforehand, and this is what it looks afterwards. A massive difference. I slapped on a preset, and then I did some editing. You can see I do a lot of masking. For instance, in the middle, we have a mask up here that is taking up the exposure because I want to draw attention to my Jeep. And then I also have masks that you can see here where I'm using a gradient filter, and I'm darkening up the foreground because I want to make the foreground a little bit less noticeable, which helps draw people's eye to the subject, which is the Jeep down here, all right? And then, of course, also, I'm going through the photo, checking the contrast. Should I pick more contrast or less contrast? Going through the colors again, seeing like sliding a few sliders, seeing like, should my orange car be just red? Or should I maybe have it more yellow? You understand? Making sure that all the colors match and look nice. And then the final trick, in my opinion, like I talked before, is going to the effects tab and taking down the clarity a little bit. Now, the big question is the camera in the iPhone 17 Pro actually any good and isn't even worth upgrading to? Or should you just use your old iPhone? Well, I took it out with my critical eye as a photographer, and in this video right here, I'm sharing my very first impressions and what I truly think about it.